Clark right that baseball is failing in its marketing of Mookie Betts?
He's wrong, and I say that emphatically. It's not the fault of Major League Baseball. It's the fault of the players. Once again, you have a problem with Major League Baseball players today's unwillingness to matriculate to the modern-day era. The fact of the matter is we have the advent of social media and beyond. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, all of this other stuff that you might not care too much about, Tony. Unfortunately, I've been forced to. I don't blame you. I don't blame you. But here's the reality of the situation. You have to go about the business, particularly when you play 162 games a year, when people can fall asleep and ignore you for months and still come back to life, and there's still about 50 games to play. You have to do something to further ingratiate yourself with the fan base. Major League Baseball players don't care. Unlike any other sport, they hold on for dear life to the tradition of the sport, to doing things in an old school manner, and as a result, they don't care what the fans want. At least that's how they come across. So when you talk about Major League Baseball, who has definitely made a concerted effort to ingratiate themselves with the younger generation because they feel like their core audience is older than the audience is for the NBA, the audience is for the NFL. Major League Baseball recognized a long time ago they needed to do something about it. The players have said, we don't give a damn, and that's their problem.
So this is, in a rare moment on this show, I'm going to agree completely. If Tony Clark has a problem with this, Tony Clark, do your job.
That's right.
You're the head of the Players Association.
That's right.
Make the players do this. And by the way, if you're going to come out to an American audience and you're going to say he's a one-name guy and you're going to compare him to European soccer players, that's ridiculous. Here are the one-name people in American sports. They're NBA stars and NFL quarterbacks.
That's right.
That's who they are right now. Mike Trout's the greatest player in the world, and nobody knows what Mike Trout looks like.
Right.
And Aaron Rodgers, who wears a helmet, everybody knows who he is. And Tom Brady wears a helmet, they know who he is. So if you want people to sign lucrative contracts for endorsements, get your players to want to do it.
That's right. How you going to sign somebody for $400+ million, but then don't force him to sell the sport?
Come on.
My goodness, you got to be kidding me. Let us move on.
Aren't we supposed to not agree? That was great.
This is not first take.
Okay.
It's all right for us to be brothers. There ain't no question about that. Here's the latest news out of the Brooklyn Nets camp. Nets coach Kenny Atkinson had this to say about what to expect from his relationship with Kyrie Irving. Quote, "We play a system I don't imagine changing a ton. You'll have to ask him that. I think that's part of the reason he was interested in coming here. Our style of play. I think we'll come to a meeting of the minds between me and him and how that works within the group." Tony, based on these words, are you confident that Coach Atkinson and Kyrie Irving will come to a meeting of the minds?
Here's what I'm more confident in. That the first guy fired is not going to be Kyrie Irving, it's going to be Kenny Atkinson. Now, I want to like Kenny Atkinson.
Right.
He's a Long Island boy.
Right.
I mean, I want him to do very well. It's hard to coach Kyrie Irving. A lot of people have found that. It's hard to coach Kevin Durant. You bring people like this in and you talk about how your system is real good. They've won championships. Just refresh my memory. How many championships has Atkinson won at this point?
0.
Okay, well, they've won championships. So when you take this position, which sounds like it's my system, and if you don't like it, what are you doing here? I don't know that's the right way to go.
Huge mistake on Atkinson's part, and here's why. Leading up to Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. If you wanted Kemba Walker, it would be in concert with one of those guys joining them, okay? So by Atkinson saying what he just said, essentially what he said is, look, you ain't the creme de la creme. You ain't the prize that we ultimately wanted. It was Kevin Durant, because you didn't see him utter these words about Kevin Durant. Now, Kevin Durant is home in bed somewhere with his leg laid up because he's got the Achilles tear. Right. You didn't see him utter a challenging word in Kevin Durant's direction. Why? Because he's truly the franchise player. Kyrie Irving is a show. He's a special, special talent, make no mistake about it. But coming off the year that he had in Boston, there are some questions about him as a leader. There's some questions as whether or not you want him to be a face of a franchise. And Kenny Atkinson essentially went about the business of publicly admitting that before this man even showed up to training camp. That is not smart because, remember, Kyrie is Kevin Durant's boy. And if you alienate Kyrie Irving prematurely, you have alienated Kevin Durant prematurely, which the Nets should not want to do.
Can I confess a terrible prejudice here? I'm not rooting against the Nets. And I love the Nets because I was there at the birth of the Nets on Long Island. When they had Rick Barry and they later had Julius Erving, they had Billy Pauls, the Whopper, if you remember him. Yeah. And I just think that the acquisition of these two and statements like this make me say, what are you talking about?
That's right.
What are we doing?
I totally agree with you.
Serena Williams is into the semifinals at Wimbledon now for the 12th time. Tomorrow, she will play unseeded Barbara Strycova. On the other side of the draw are women who have never been to the finals of Wimbledon, a tournament that Serena has now won 7 times. Stephen, given her path, should we expect Serena to win?
Yes. I think we should. Why should we bet against her? Do we see anybody that we can definitively say is going to knock off Serena? No. Now, this is tennis. Anytime you can lose. I mean, think about the U.S. Open and Wimbledon. Over the last 2 years, she's lost in the finals to Osaka and Kerber, if I remember correctly.
That's right.
The bottom line is this. Anybody can be beat on any given day in tennis. We understand it. We respect it. But if you got to take your money and you say, I got to pick somebody to get it done. You're talking about Serena, who's obviously chasing Margaret Court, wants to be the all-time singles champion. You're talking about a lady in Serena Williams who's absolutely phenomenal, and more importantly, she's got the heart of a lion. She's arguably the greatest champion we have ever seen in American history. When you think about the number of titles that she's won, the level of adversity she has endured in that path to championship after championship after championship, I think it would be foolish for anybody to bet against Serena. So if I got to take her or the field, particularly when she's already in the semifinals, I'm taking Serena Williams. And usually I'm going to win in that round.
Most of the time you are. And in terms of greatest ever, you know, Steffi Graf is in the conversation, Martina Navratilova, Billie Jean King, Chris Evert. And Serena Williams. Absolutely there. And you would think that because these people are not as accomplished as she is, certainly not as accomplished at this particular court as she is, that she would win. But again, she did lose twice in finals last year. She has not won a major since the Australian in 2017, which I think is in January of 2017. And she's 37 years old. Now, I'm still picking her to win. But you say to me, oh, 37. Well, Federer's 37, and he reached the semifinals too. But we've seen him age. He doesn't win all the finals anymore. There comes a point in tennis where it's almost too much to go through the 2 weeks. It's just hard to do.
You can say that, but here's my retort to that. I didn't see Federer, for obvious reasons, was never pregnant, never had a child, and then came back and won. Okay? He never had to endure that. This is Serena Williams that we're talking about here. She's eclipsed things that we never fantasized. We never even dreamed somebody could end up pulling off. And by the way, when we say the last time she won was in the Australian Open, that was just a couple of years ago. It wasn't like it was Tiger Woods who had it
and she was pregnant at that time.
That's right.
At that time.
That's right.
Maybe Federer should work on it.
How about that?
Let's take a break. Coming up, should baseball start miking up players during the regular season? Oh, it's you.
And what are we to make of R.J. Barrett's first solid Summer League performance for the New York?
On, which means it's time to perform an uncomfortable procedure on Stephen A. Smith. And what's the word? What's first?
Baseball would be blank to have players interact with broadcasters during every game.
They would be trend-setting and smart and fan-friendly. As I said earlier, attendance is down the last couple of years. If you have players mic'd up, providing they don't just curse for 10 straight minutes, but if you have cooperative players mic'd up and you can get insight into a game, you're going to offer something to your fans that the other sports don't do. I mean, I understand there are certain risks involved in this, but to me, you get baseball out in front of a much wider audience, because even the young kids who don't watch now go, wow, they're talking to them right now during the game.
I respectfully disagree. The word that comes to my mind is stupid. I think it would be an absolutely stupid idea, and I want to be clear as to why that is. We are just weeks removed from a manager of the New York Mets and a player for the New York Mets getting into it with a reporter because the reporter looked at them and said, have a good evening. Could you imagine if a broadcast or whatever was allowed to be in the air of an athlete, of a baseball player while performing? Excuse me, you gonna just take those strikes? When are you gonna swing? I mean, could you get a hit, please? Could you imagine if something like that was set to them?
I think that'd be great fun.
Ridiculous idea.
Next!
Ridiculous.
After last night's performance, Knicks fans should feel blank about R.J. Barrett.
Optimistic. He's 19 years old. He went into school last year as the #1 rated prospect, and even ahead of Zion Williamson at that point. Look, he's coachable. He was brought up well. He's willing to be coached. I understand he can't shoot right now. But for Knicks fans of a certain age, even older than you, Bill Bradley's not walking through that door. Dick Barnett's not walking through that door.
Rub it in, rub
you
it in.
can learn to shoot. Magic Johnson, learn to shoot. I think he's going to be fun.
The word that comes to my mind is leery, and I don't want to do this because I like the kid. He's got talent. I know he can score. He averaged 22 a game at Duke. I get it. But he's not a shooter. He's a scorer. He's not lightning quick. He certainly doesn't have athleticism that jumps out of the screen. And I think those things on the NBA level can be somewhat of a hindrance to his. I really believe that.
Okay, but I'm
not sold on him.
Look at the progress somebody can can make. Do you believe that at 19 you can make that judgment and say there's a ceiling?
Yes, I do. And I agree with his dad, talked about his commitment to excellence, how hard he will work. I believe in the kid's character.
Right.
But we're talking about his game, and I'm not wowed yet on the NBA level in terms of imagining him a NBA talent.
Last one. It would be blank if Marcus Morris backs out of his deal with the Spurs and signs with the Knicks.
Cheesy. People will look at him badly. People will say, you gave a verbal commitment to the San Antonio Spurs, and as a result, the San Antonio Spurs made a series of moves that now weakens that team, and then you backed out of signing with them. But from a legal standpoint, he did not sign any contract, so he doesn't really have to show up there. He's going to make $5 million more than he would have with San Antonio. It's not something that I can defend, but I have a solution.
Well, you have a solution.
Here's my solution.
Okay.
He's got a twin brother. Ship him to San Antonio. Mark Keefe.
I like that. That's a good one because they both can play. I like them both as players. I respect them, but the word that comes to my mind is unprofessional. Here's why. Your word is your word. You gave it. Period. I understand there's more money. I get it. But you told the San Antonio Spurs you were coming. They made moves to maneuver around the cap to facilitate your arrival. For you to back out, what if it was the other way around? I don't recall of any situation, and I could be wrong, but I don't recall of any situation where there was an NBA team who promised you, okay, we're bringing you here. Deal is done. Handshake agreement with you and the agent, your representative, and then reneged on that deal. They would have a heart attack. They would have a heart attack. They would go insane.
No, that would
guess
not
what?
work.
What's good for the goose is good for the gander. You gave your word. It was publicized. You agreed to come on board.
Again,
all parties was on it. Honor your word.
Twin brother, nobody would know. Nobody would ever know.
Wait, they would know.
That's it. Eat your words, Stephen A. Let's take one last break, but still to come, the World Cup champs parade through New York City.
And could Amari Stoudemire really return to the National Basketball Association?
I think he's older than Serena and Federer right now.
He might be. He might be, except they play better anyway. I'm just saying, they play better. Pardon the interruption, but I'm Stephen A. Smith. The A stands for Anthony.
And I'm Anthony I. Kornheiser. The I stands for iconic. Actually, it stands for Irwin, which is such a terrible name. I would so wish that my parents had named me Anthony Iconic Kornheiser. Do you ever go by Anthony? Do your friends call you Anthony?
Never.
Anybody ever call you Anthony?
Never. Never.
Well, Anthony, we have a show to do. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. Wilbot has abandoned me, so I've decided to give a big break to a shy kid. Please help me welcome from First Take, from ESPN Radio, Sports Center, and General Hospital, Mr. Stephen A. Smith. It was so great. I saw you on General Hospital within the hour. It was so great to see that.
Thank you.
We begin today with a report from The Athletic that says Kawhi Leonard has signed only a 2-year deal with the Los Angeles Clippers. And this means that after 2 years there, both Kawhi and Paul George are free to go wherever their hearts wander. Stephen, this sort of feels like a rental to me. Does it change your assessment of the chance the Clippers are taking?
Not at all. Not at all. They had to take this chance. First of all, understand what Kawhi Leonard is doing here. By getting a 2-year deal with an out after that, you'll have 10 years in the league, thus making you eligible for the supermax that you're looking for in a couple of years or so. Plus, it puts the Clippers under the gun. Just because you got me and because you have Paul George does not give you a license to take us for granted and don't consistently go about the business of keeping a team around us. LeBron James and Anthony Davis are in the same building, in the same city, the Staples Center. They're going to be competing for championships. Don't leave us hanging. We need all the help that we can get. Don't forget about us.
So would you agree with me that the Clippers' position was, if he stays in Toronto, okay, but he can't go to the Lakers. He can't come to this building and wear the purple. Because we're dead at that point.
They would have returned to the dark ages.
So what this thing basically says to me, the 2-year deal, is interesting to me in this regard, because I think that the NBA has changed radically and recently. That it is a win-now league. And if you don't win now, you go somewhere else, you reassemble like amoebas. You know, you find the sweet spot to win right now. I don't know that other sports are like that.
Well, you're probably right, but here's the key to recognize as it pertains to the Clippers. You can't return to the dark ages. Your definition of winning may not necessarily mean a championship. It may mean preventing the Lakers from winning a championship. It may be making sure that you're just as relevant in the championship equation as the Los Angeles Lakers, so you could go about the business of battling Tinseltown for the love, even though though Laker Nation is Laker Nation, you still have to be relevant when you got the richest owner, a future Hall of Fame coach, and arguably the greatest executive in the history of the sport as the billionaire owner's right-hand man.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, I mean, but I look at this and I go, that something happened recently, within the last 6 or 7 years. LeBron James found the magic door, opened the door. Now he's like the Pied Piper. People now realize, players now realize, we don't have to sign forever and ever and ever. We can get out when we want to. We can go play with somebody we want to, because winning a championship in this league actually seems more important to legacy than winning in another league.
Yeah, the elite stars feel that way. Everybody else better watch themselves. They don't have that kind of cash.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
Obviously, let's move on. Despite only 2 home runs being hit in last night's All-Star game, the home run is still the biggest story in Major League Baseball. But according to Commissioner Rob Manfred, we should not believe this is a good thing in the eyes of baseball owners. In fact, he said the owners are not happy with more home runs. And yesterday, baseball called in Justin Verlander to let him know they are not altering the ball on purpose, which Verlander emphatically claimed. Tony, who should we believe on all of this, Verlander or Manfred?
Well, I'm going to believe Manfred on a couple of things. I'm going to believe Manfred on the notion that there's no secret document that baseball ordered in some nefarious way for baseballs to be juiced, even though the result of whatever tinkering happened is that the baseballs are flying out. And I'm going to believe him that owners may not want this for this reason. Attendance is down the last 2 years when you've had the most home runs. So it is not necessarily bringing people to the television and not necessarily bringing people to the gate. I think the best thing in this, actually, is calling Verlander in what seemed to be a spirit of cooperation. I mean, not insulting him,
right,
and say, here, this is what we're doing here.
Am I allowed to say that you're lying, but without calling you a liar? Because that's what I believe about the commissioner right now. I'm not calling Rob Manfred, who I respect, a liar.
Right.
But I do think he is telling us a large fib here. First of all, let's understand something here. Back in 1994, when the World Series was canceled, what helped resurrect the sport of Major League Baseball? Home
Long
runs,
ball.
Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa.
Long ball.
This is before he forgot to show. This is before he remembered to show up on Capitol Hill and brought an interpreter because he forgot suddenly how to speak the English language. Okay.
Right.
The bottom line is this: everybody loves the long ball. We understand that. The long ball helped resurrect baseball. You go to the ballpark hoping to see home runs. Don't tell me that the owners don't care about the home runs when it has been proven that home runs sell, and we know they care about their money as much as anything else.
The attendance is down in the last 2 years because the ball isn't in play as much.
Okay.
Because it's either a strikeout or a home run. Are you not at all moved by the fact that when the greatest players in baseball, current baseball players, were out there last night, there were only 2 home runs, not 10. And that American League pitchers struck out 16 National League batters. So, I mean, to me, when you get to the playoffs, or when you get to the best, that defense, which is pitching, defense still works, and you don't hit it out all the time.
Well, you did ask a question there, and I'll answer it. No, I am not moved. I am not moved by that, Tony.
I was.
All right.
The head of the Major League Baseball Players Association, Tony Clark, spoke before the All-Star game in a passionate plea for the nationwide fame of Mookie Betts. Clark said, quote, Mookie should be a household name. Mookie should be a one-name guy. You say Ronaldo, you say Messi, you say Mookie. You should know who Mookie is, and outside of the baseball world, I don't know how many do, unquote. Stephen, is Clark right